Welcome to the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
Glad to be here.
Now, today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. It's Finding Flow, the Psychology of Engagement with Everyday Life 1 Hour Guide by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Quite a mouthful.
It is quite a
But
mouthful.
a really, really interesting book.
Yeah, and it's one of those books that I think has really resonated with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Especially, I think, in today's world where we're so bombarded with distractions and
Yeah.
finding that sense of focus and engagement can be really tough.
Oh, for sure. And that's, really what Csikszentmihalyi is getting at in this book.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu
Yeah.
does a great job of kind of distilling those core ideas.
Yeah. So our mission today is to give you, the listener, like the key takeaways, the important points, the insights, the lessons that the author's sharing
Okay.
to help you really understand how to create a more engaged life,
Yeah.
a more fulfilling life, and to do it in a way that's really clear and concise. We want to focus on the essence of these ideas
Yes.
and not get bogged down in, all the irrelevant details. So,
Yeah. I mean, the book itself is quite dense. So this is kind of like your shortcut to the good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whether you're, someone who's looking to boost your productivity or you want to find more enjoyment in just your daily activities or
Yes.
you're, really trying to understand, what makes for a fulfilling life.
Mhm.
This deep dive into the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu is going to offer some really valuable insights, I think.
Absolutely.
So left from right in,
Okay.
the central idea, obviously, as the title hints at, is this concept of flow.
Right.
So what's the core of what Csikszentmihalyi is getting at there?
So at its heart, flow is this state of, being completely absorbed in what you're doing. Is where your challenges and your skills are kind of in this perfect balance.
Right.
And it creates this really immersive experience where you lose track of time
Yeah.
and the activity itself becomes incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, it's like that feeling of being in the zone, right?
agree.
Where everything just clicks.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is how this applies to, so many different areas of life, whether you're, an athlete,
Right.
a musician, an artist,
Yeah.
or even just, someone trying to get through their to-do list.
Yeah, and the book even gives an example of how this plays out in the business world, right?
It does. There's a great story in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu about a startup founder
Okay.
who was completely burned out.
Mhm.
They were just,
Yeah.
pushing themselves with willpower and
Okay.
not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
And they started applying these principles of flow,
Okay.
breaking down their work into, manageable tasks,
Yeah.
setting clear goals, focusing on their strengths.
Mm.
And they experienced this huge shift.
Okay.
Work stopped feeling like this constant struggle,
Yeah.
and it became much more engaging.
Yeah.
And as a result, their efficiency went up, and they actually, contributed to the success of their startup.
So it's not just about working harder, it's about working
Smarter.
smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and finding that kind of sweet spot where you're actually engaged and enjoying the process.
And tapping into that intrinsic motivation.
Right, exactly. So if we want to experience more of this flow, how do we actually structure our time,
Right.
our activities to make that happen?
So Csikszentmihalyi argues that we need to be much more intentional about how we shape our experiences,
Okay.
because we often, fall into these patterns of passive consumption that don't really engage us.
Right. It's easy to just kind of drift through the day.
It is. And the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu provides some really practical advice on how to combat that.
Okay, so what's the first step?
So first, you need to identify those activities where you find that sweet spot between challenge and skill.
Right.
So it's got to be challenging enough to keep you engaged,
Yeah.
but not so difficult that it's overwhelming.
Right. So it's finding that balance. Exactly. And be honest with yourself about where you're spending time on things that,
Don't
really light you up. Yeah, or that are just kind of mindless, time fillers.
Exact.
Okay, what else does the book emphasize?
Setting clear and meaningful goals.
Okay.
This is crucial
Why is that?
because flow doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
It needs direction.
Okay.
So whether you're working on a project or, pursuing a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
having those clear objectives gives you something to focus on.
Okay, and that helps you kind of stay in that flow state.
Exactly. And equally important is getting feedback,
Okay.
finding ways to get immediate feedback on your progress.
So it's not just about the long-term vision. It's about...
Yeah, those smaller milestones.
Right.
Those little indicators along the way that tell you you're on the right track.
Okay, so it's like breaking down those bigger goals into smaller chunks.
Exactly. And each of those chunks, you get that sense of accomplishment.
All right.
And that keeps you motivated.
And the book also talks about this idea of, balancing challenge and skill, right?
Absolutely.
If the challenge is too high,
You're going to get anxious.
right, you're going to feel overwhelmed.
Exactly. And if it's too low, you're going to get bored.
Right. So it's about
But
constantly...
finding that equally.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
And there's also this fascinating concept in the book called developing an autotelic personality.
Yes.
So what is that all about?
So an autotelic personality is someone who's intrinsically motivated.
Okay.
They find joy in the activity itself, not just the outcome.
So it's not about the reward. It's about
The process.
the process. Yeah.
And they're driven by a sense of curiosity
Okay.
and a desire to learn and grow.
So how do we cultivate more of that autotelic personality?
So the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu suggests, shifting your focus to that inherent enjoyment, setting personal challenges,
Okay.
practicing deep focus, embracing difficulties as opportunities to learn.
So it's really about changing your mindset.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental shift in perspective.
And the book also talks about creating environments that are conducive to flow, right?
Yeah, it does. It talks about minimizing distractions,
Okay.
cultivating a sense of autonomy over your work, and trying to align your tasks with your natural strengths.
So it's about setting yourself up for success.
Exactly.
Now, the book also delves into this idea of the structures of everyday life. So
Yeah.
what's the key message there?
So Csikszentmihalyi really challenges us to look beyond just, getting through the day.
Okay.
He points out how easy it is to become passive
Right.
in our work, in our household tasks,
Yeah.
even in our leisure time.
It's easy to just go through the motions.
It is. And he's urging us to be more mindful and to find ways to inject more engagement into these routine aspects of our lives.
Okay, so how do we actually start restructuring our everyday lives to invite more flow?
So the first step is awareness. The 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu suggests taking a close look at how you're actually spending your time.
Okay.
Track your activities and then reflect on how you feel during and after them.
Oh.
Are you energized? Are you drained?
Right.
And then from there, it's about, seeking more engagement in your work.
Okay.
Can you identify opportunities to take on new challenges, to learn new skills, or even to find a new perspective on your existing tasks?
Yeah, because maybe even the most mundane tasks have some hidden angle
Exactly.
that we can find that can make them more engaging.
And the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu really emphasizes this potential for transforming even maintenance activities.
Like what?
Like cooking or cleaning or commuting.
Right.
Can you approach cooking as a creative experiment?
Okay.
Can you listen to an interesting podcast during your commute?
Right.
It's about bringing intention and attention to these often overlooked parts of the day.
Yeah, it's about finding those little ways to kind of inject some joy and some engagement.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and when it comes to leisure, the emphasis is on active participation rather than passive consumption.
So instead of just watching TV,
Yeah.
we should be doing something.
Engaging in hobbies,
Okay.
pursuing creative endeavors, being physically active.
Right. And ultimately, having that clear personal vision for what a meaningful life looks like can really help guide those efforts.
Absolutely.
Now, the book also explores this idea of the content of experience.
Right.
So what's the main takeaway there?
So this section really emphasizes that our inner world, our thoughts, our emotions, our goals, have a much greater impact on our well-being
Okay.
than our external circumstances.
So it's not about what's happening to us.
Yeah.
It's about how we're responding to it.
Two people in the same situation can have completely different experiences based on their inner state.
And happiness in this view isn't something that you find
Out there. Yeah.
It's a byproduct of engaging in meaningful and absorbing activities.
So it really is about what's going on inside.
Absolutely.
Now, the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu also highlights the power of having clear goals
Yes.
to focus our attention and to provide that sense of direction.
Absolutely. Because without goals, we're just kind of drifting.
Right.
And it also introduces these concepts of psychic entropy and psychic negentropy.
Okay, what are those?
So psychic entropy is a state of inner chaos
Okay.
where your thoughts are all jumbled and conflicting.
Like when your mind is racing.
Exactly. And psychic negentropy is the opposite.
Okay.
It's when your thoughts are organized and focused.
So it's about bringing order to that inner chaos. And the book offers some strategies for doing that, right?
It does. It talks about becoming more aware of your emotions,
Okay.
learning to regulate them, setting meaningful and challenging goals,
Right.
training your mind to be present,
Okay.
and practicing techniques to organize your thoughts. So it's like a whole toolkit for managing that inner world.
Exactly. And it all comes back to being more intentional.
Right now, Chapter 3 in the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu looks at how we feel when doing different things.
Right.
So what are some of the insights there that stood out to you?
So this section really delves into the emotional landscape of our daily activities.
Okay.
So work maintenance tasks, leisure time.
And what's interesting is that the book talks about this paradox of work.
Yes.
So explain that a little bit.
So work often contains many of the elements that could lead to flow.
Okay.
Clear goals, feedback mechanisms,
Right.
a potential balance between challenge and skill.
But yet so many people experience it as a source of stress.
Exactly.
And dissatisfaction.
It's a paradox.
So why is that?
Well, the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu suggests that it's because of things like societal pressures,
Okay.
a lack of autonomy in many work environments,
Yeah.
and the feeling that you're working towards someone else's goals.
Right. So you're not really feeling that sense of ownership.
Exactly. And that can really undermine that potential for flow.
Okay.
But on the other hand, the book points out that even maintenance activities,
Okay.
which we often dread,
Right.
can actually be sources of fulfillment
Okay.
if we approach them with a different mindset.
So it's about how we're thinking about those activities,
Right.
not necessarily the activities themselves.
Right.
And when it comes to leisure,
Yeah.
the book makes this distinction between active and passive leisure.
Yes.
So what's the difference?
So active leisure is about engaging in activities that you enjoy,
Okay.
that challenge you, that help you grow.
Okay.
Passive leisure is more about just consuming entertainment.
Okay. So like watching TV.
Yeah, scrolling through social media.
So one is more about being a participant,
Yeah,
and the other is more about being a spectator.
exactly. And the book argues that active leisure is much more conducive to flow and to overall well-being.
So it's not just about relaxing, it's about engaging.
Engaging, yeah. So what are some concrete ways that we can improve our emotional engagement
Okay.
with these different parts of our day?
So the book recommends starting by analyzing your own emotional patterns
Okay.
in response to different activity.
So pay attention to how you're feeling.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then try to reframe your work.
Mm.
Look for opportunities for growth and learning
Right.
rather than just seeing it as a means to an end.
To find the meaning in it.
Exactly. And find ways to make those routine tasks a little more enjoyable.
Okay.
Maybe by setting small challenges for yourself or listening to something you find interesting.
So it's about finding those little ways to make it more
Engaging.
yeah.
And make a conscious effort to choose active forms of leisure
Right.
that truly engage you and cultivate that sense of presence in whatever you're doing.
And the book argues that true satisfaction
Yes.
comes from this kind of structured and mindful engagement.
It does. Okay, so let's dig into this paradox of work a little bit more.
Okay.
We've talked about why it can feel like a burden, even though it has these flow elements.
Right.
So what are some actual steps we can take
Okay.
to transform our work into a more meaningful and engaging experience?
So the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu offers several strategies here.
Okay.
It starts with shifting your perspective on work.
Okay.
Instead of viewing it purely as an obligation, try to see it as an opportunity to develop your skills,
Okay.
to contribute your talents,
Right.
to solve interesting problems.
So find the aspects of it that you actually enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look for ways to introduce more autonomy and creativity into your daily tasks.
Okay.
Even small degrees of control can make a big difference.
And remember that balance between challenge and skill.
Yes, that's crucial.
If your work feels too easy, look for ways to stretch yourself.
Right.
If it feels overwhelming, break it down into smaller steps.
Exactly.
And make a conscious effort to stay present while you're working.
Minimize distractions.
Right. Minimize those distractions.
And consider establishing personal rituals or routines
Okay.
that add a sense of purpose and satisfaction to your workday.
So it's about creating that structure and that rhythm.
Yes, and ultimately, the book positions work as, a potentially essential part of a fulfilling life.
Okay.
It provides us with structure, purpose, opportunities for flow,
So it's not something to be dreaded. It's something to be
embraced.
embraced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the risks and opportunities of leisure.
Okay.
This is something that, we all look forward to.
Right.
But the book suggests that it's not always the guaranteed source of happiness that we might think it is.
It's not. And unstructured free time can actually lead to boredom, restlessness, even a sense of emptiness.
It's like you have all this free time and you don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. And you end up feeling worse than you did before.
So the book makes this key distinction between passive leisure and active leisure.
Yes.
So remind us again what that is.
So passive leisure is things like watching TV,
Okay.
scrolling through social media, just kind of vegging out.
Okay.
Active leisure is about engaging in activities
Right.
that you enjoy, that challenge you, that help you grow.
So give us some examples of active leisure.
So things like hobbies, learning new skills, engaging in physical activity,
Right.
spending time in nature.
So it's about being more intentional with your free time.
Exactly.
So how do we make sure that our leisure time is actually fulfilling?
So the first step is recognizing the limitations of passive leisure.
Okay.
It can provide a temporary escape, but it rarely leads to lasting satisfaction.
Right.
So actively identify activities that you genuinely enjoy,
Okay.
that hold your attention, set goals for your leisure time,
Okay.
just like you might for your work.
So have a plan.
Yes. Have a plan and strive for a balance between relaxation and challenge.
Okay.
And be mindful of how much time you're dedicating to low engagement activities.
Right. So limit those.
Yes.
Yeah.
And approach your leisure time with intention.
Okay.
Don't just let it fill the void.
So it's about being proactive.
Yeah.
About how you spend your free time.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about relationships and the quality of life.
Okay.
How do our connections with others impact our ability to experience flow and overall happiness?
So relationships have a profound impact.
Okay.
The 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu points out that positive relationships, characterized by deep engagement
Good.
and mutual challenge, can significantly enhance our experience of flow.
Okay.
But negative or superficial relationships can actually disrupt flow
Right.
and be a source of stress.
So it's about the quality of those relationships.
It is.
Not just the quantity.
Exactly.
So what are some principles for building relationships that actually support our well-being
Okay.
and potentially even foster flow?
So the guide emphasizes prioritizing quality over quantity.
Okay.
So focus on cultivating deeper connections with a few key people, rather than spreading yourself thin across many superficial interactions.
And when you are with those people,
Yeah.
be present.
Be present.
Deeds.
Listen.
Amen.
Participate.
Yeah.
Address conflicts openly.
Okay.
Don't let resentment build.
And seek out shared goals
Yeah.
and challenges.
Working towards something together can
Yeah.
be a powerful source of connection
Right.
and flow.
And cultivate positivity.
Yes, absolutely, in those interactions.
And don't be afraid to limit your exposure to relationships that drain your energy.
So it's okay to set boundaries.
It is. It is.
And remember to balance your social time with solitude.
Yes.
It's important to have that time for yourself,
Absolutely.
to recharge,
Yeah.
to reflect.
Yeah.
So it's about being intentional with your relationships.
Yes.
Just like you're intentional with other areas of your life.
Exactly.
Now let's move on to changing the patterns of life.
Okay.
What's the central idea there?
So this chapter focuses on our capacity to consciously reshape our habits and routines. Okay.
To create more opportunities for flow.
And the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu highlights how easy it is to get stuck in these unfulfilling patterns.
Right.
And to become distracted by things that don't really matter.
It happens to all of us.
So how do we break free from those patterns?
So the first step, as always, is self-awareness.
Okay.
Take a look at how you're spending your time. Identify the activities that bring you flow
Okay.
and those that don't.
And then make a conscious effort to
Shift.
Yeah.
Reduce your engagement in the activities that drain you and set goals for
Right.
the activities that you want to incorporate more of.
So be intentional about it.
Exactly.
Seek out challenges.
Yes.
Cultivate mindful focus.
Minimize distraction.
Right. Minimize those distractions.
And even reevaluate your social interactions
Oh,
to make sure they're aligned with your well-being.
and even those routine tasks.
Yes.
Try to approach them with more purpose and engagement.
It's about finding the flow in the everyday.
Yeah. So it's really about taking control of your life
Absolutely.
and shaping it in a way that is conducive to flow.
And to fulfillment.
Right.
Yeah.
Now let's explore this concept of the autotelic personality a little
Right.
bit more.
So an autotelic personality is someone who's intrinsically motivated.
Right?
They find joy and purpose in the activities themselves, regardless of external rewards.
So it's not about the recognition
No.
or the money or the fame.
It's about the inherent satisfaction of the activity.
Right.
And they tend to be very engaged, resilient in the face of challenges,
Okay.
and they experience more flow in their lives.
So it is a very powerful way to be.
It is.
So how can we cultivate more of these autotelic tendencies?
So the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu suggests, shifting your focus to that intrinsic enjoyment,
Okay.
setting personal challenges, practicing deep focus,
Right.
embracing difficulties as opportunities for growth,
Okay.
seeking meaning in the everyday, and developing a sense of inner self-sufficiency.
So it's about finding that source of happiness within yourself
Yes.
and not relying on external factors.
Right.
Now, finally, the book touches on this really profound idea of the love of fate,
Yes.
amor fati.
Amor fati.
So what is that all about?
So amor fati is essentially about accepting and embracing all aspects of life.
Whoa.
The good and the bad, the easy and the difficult,
With a sense of
purpose and engagement.
and the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu contrasts this with
Passively resigning yourself to fate
okay.
or constantly being dissatisfied with your circumstances.
So it's not about just accepting things as they are.
Right.
And it's not about being constantly unhappy.
No, it's about finding a way to embrace the totality of your experience.
Right.
And to find meaning in it.
So how do we cultivate this love of fate?
So the book suggests starting by recognizing that, while you can't control everything that happens to you, you can control your perspective
Okay.
and how you respond.
So shift from complaining to engaging.
Exactly.
Reframe challenges as opportunities for growth.
Yes.
Seek out moments of flow.
Even in difficult circumstances.
Right.
Let go of the idea of a perfect future
Okay.
and focus on finding meaning in the present moment.
And develop a personal narrative
Yeah.
that helps you make sense of your experiences.
And surround yourself with positive people.
So it's about creating that supportive environment
Yes.
for yourself.
And it's about focusing on what you can control.
Right.
Your
Oh.
attention, your
Yeah.
engagement, your mindset.
So it's a very powerful idea.
It
There's
is.
this love of fate.
It is.
So to bring it all together,
Okay.
the core message of Finding Flow, The Psychology of Engagement with Everyday Life 1 Hour Guide by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, is that by understanding and applying these principles of flow,
Yes.
you, the listener, can take control of your experiences
Right.
and create a life that is filled with engagement, purpose, and joy.
And the key is intentionality.
Right.
Consciously shaping your time, your attention, your mindset.
To find flow in your work,
Yeah.
your leisure, and your relationships.
Absolutely.
So it's really about taking that active role
Right.
in shaping your life.
It is.
So this deep dive has really just scratched the surface
Yeah.
of this book.
There's so much more to explore.
So to delve deeper into these concepts and to learn more practical strategies, we highly recommend picking up a copy of Finding Flow, The Psychology of Engagement with Everyday Life 1 Hour Guide.
And you can find that at the 1 Hour Guide website,
Exactly.
along with other great business insights.
So thank you for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.